Welcome everyone to our third Debating Development podcast, hosted by Concerned Debate team members, myself, Geraldine Carroll, and my colleague Olga Burdescu. It's great to be back in the studio again, and we have another knowledge-fueled episode for you as we focus on the area of research and tips on sourcing good quality content for motion topics. We are joined today by a very special guest, Mr. Michael Durley, who is the head of Concern's Active Citizenship Department and our colleague. Michael first joined Concern in 1993 and initially worked as a debates coordinator during the early years of the programme's inception, prior to the days of Zoom and virtual debating, which we've become accustomed to in the past year. Michael was also a teacher in a previous life and brings a wealth of experience and knowledge on the areas of research and debating. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Ger, and good morning, Olga. It's really good to be with you both in person. I think we've only seen each other on laptop screens for the past 18 months. So, it's really nice to be here in the studio with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. Michael, you've been with the Concerned Debates for over 25 years. Before we get into today's discussion on the area of research, would you mind telling us a little more about how you came to be involved with the Concerned Debates programme and how it has evolved over the years?
Yeah, I think we could do a whole podcast just on that question alone, Olga. I mean, Ger just mentioned COVID, and because of the lockdown, we've had to put the debates almost entirely online, which is a massive evolution. And something we wouldn't have dreamed of doing just 2 years ago. But it's something we're going to stick with. There definitely are advantages because geography on Zoom, it just doesn't matter anymore. And because of that, we were getting new schools to enter the debates where we wouldn't have had adjudicators in the past, so we couldn't have accepted them in. So that's great that, schools in more remote areas of Ireland are now able to participate in the debates. And because we're not travelling, or we're not asking schools to travel to other schools, we're no longer restricted to having schools who are near each other, kind of face each other in the debates. But of course, like we've already said together ourselves, we really missed the in-person presence of just being in the room together, of sharing a cup of tea afterwards. So the most recent evolution of the debates is the online stuff. And we're going to keep the league phase online, but hopefully, all going well, in the spring term, we'll be having the knockouts in person. But kind of on a longer term, as Ger said, I've been with Concern now since 1993. And back then, the debates was nearly 10 years old, started in 1984. Mm. And the format of the competition was very different back then, insofar as there wasn't a league and knockout phase that I just mentioned, but rather it was knockout from the very beginning. So a school debates year could start and end on the same chilly night in October. And if it didn't end in October, it could end at the next debate in November, and all the way through to the final in May. So every debate back then was life or death, whereas now with the league phase, we guarantee at least 3 debates for every school, which I think is much more efficient and much better in terms of learning for the students. But the idea behind starting the debates was to give students an opportunity to explore in some depth the big issues of our time, particularly as they related to the developing world and the work of Concern. And issues that by and large weren't being addressed in the school curriculum. Back then, issues like apartheid, the Cold War, MAD, mutually assured destruction, which was happening long before the two of you were born. Debt crisis, the legacy of colonialism, and all of that. So we were discussing those issues and wanting students to really, go beyond the curriculum and engage with them. But I think, the good thing, when you ask about evolution of the debates, is that the original purpose or mission of the debates hasn't changed at all. Many of the motions obviously have changed to reflect the times we're living in, but the underlying issues are still there. We're still debating inequality. We're debating gender. We're debating poverty, the effectiveness of overseas aid, of political will, of the environment and climate change. But opening the mind of students to some of these big issues is what it's still all about. And then again, beyond the debate, we hope the debate just doesn't end when the debate ends. But we're saying beyond the debates, we hope that students will become kind of lifelong advocates on behalf of those who are left behind in our world, those who are living on less than $5 a day, who don't have access to sufficient food on a daily basis, or quality education, or basic healthcare, and so on. So in terms of where the concerned debates fit in the schools, we used to say that we were an extracurricular activity. We were outside of the classroom. But I think, in listening to teachers and what teachers have told us is, how they use the motions that we have for each round. Sometimes they use them as homework for the whole class or as a special assignment, or how they use the debates, marking sheet and structure in a classroom environment on a particular activity. So it's a good kind of learning methodology for them. So the debates today, I think, we talk about evolution again, is that the debates are probably more co-curricular than they are extracurricular, that we run alongside of the curriculum. When we look at CSPE, when we look at politics and society, when we look at some transition year modules. So the co-curricular aspect is there, but it also, it gives students that chance to go deeper into the issues.
That's interesting, Michael. We have heard similar feedback from teachers involved in the debates, but we wonder, what do you think are the key skills that students get from participating in the programme?
I think the skills are just so crucial today, because so much of our public discourse, I think today, takes place through megaphones. With people shouting at each other across the metaphorical street, or shouting at each other on Twitter or other social platforms, but not really taking the time to listen. And I think that is a key skill in life, or really to get to the roots of an issue and even agree on basic facts. Which I think really all leads you into what we really are here to talk about today, which is about research.
Thank you, Michael. Research can often be viewed as a boring or tedious subject matter, somewhat like, of an afterthought really for many students. But we're here to dispel this idea and let you all in on a little secret. No debate is possible without good quality research. But where should we start? Michael, could you offer some ideas to our audience as to the first steps to take in researching a debates motion?
No, you're completely right, Chair. I mean, a debate without good research is like, baking bread without a raising agent. The research not only is essential to your arguments, but seriously challenges or undermines the arguments of your opponent. In fact, I can remember years ago a debate where clearly the raising agent was missing. And it became very, very clear from the captain's opening speech on that the team had had very little time to do their research. So the captain began his 4.5 minutes with being outraged at the stand his friends in the opposition were about to take on the motion, and being appalled at how such a motion could be placed before the House and such a worthy organisation as concerned could demean itself to add. On he went, and he talked about the effrontery of those who would question the proposition stand. Now, it was mildly funny, but to use another food metaphor, it was all sizzle and no sausage. So I guess the opposite to good research is waffle and unsubstantiated opinion, which never carries the day.
So from the marking sheet then, how is good research rewarded?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because, I mean, when you look at the marking sheet, debates research or research isn't actually mentioned on the sheet under either content or debating skills. We do, however, capture research under knowledge and understanding, relevance to the motion, and use and variety of sources, which all point, as I say, to strong research. You can't have any of them. You can't have good knowledge, relevance, or sources without research. So it's absolutely there. And I think for those three categories on the marking sheet, we assign 80 marks, which is just under 40% of the total. So if anyone wants to carry their side of the motion and doesn't conduct good research, then clearly that 80 marks is not going to be awarded to them. We find generally, though, the temptation for teams when doing research is that once they know what the motion is, so once concern has told them what the motion is, and once concern has told them what side of the motion they are on, either proposition or opposition, is that the team rushes off largely to Google to find out everything they can to support their side of the motion. And oftentimes the amount of information they find there is just overwhelming. I mean, I typed just this morning, I typed in hunger in the global south into Google, and it came back with 74,300,000 articles. So there's no shortage of information out there.
So what would you recommend, Michael?
What Concern recommends is, as a first step in researching the motion, is for the team, who hopefully are more than just the four actual debaters, and they will have a few researchers there to assist them, is to meet as a group and discuss the motion in general. Asking questions like, so why is this a debate? What is it about this topic that makes it contested? What are the key issues that are involved? And are there any solutions that may have been tried and failed? Is there a baddie responsible, for this motion? Is someone holding, under development or holding debt in place and who needs to be gotten out of the way somehow? And a whole bunch of other questions that the team can ask, really to try and get to the essence, of the debates. What are we really talking about here? A number of years ago, I think back in 2012, we produced a resource called Finding Your Voice that we're updating now. But it included a few handy tools for starting research, like the compass rose or the relevance checker, which kind of guides students through some of these key inquiry questions that they should start with before actually getting into the research. And I think that is another skill in the research process, is knowing what is relevant to the argument and what is not. There are times in a debate, and we've all heard it ourselves as adjudicators, when a speaker will tell a moving and really powerful story, and you can be quite gripped by it, but it doesn't, unfortunately, connect with the motion. So relevance absolutely is part of that research process.
Thank you, Michael. Actually, I remember an interesting story where Geraldine and I were adjudicating at a debate years ago, and we remember being surprised and shocked by the fact that the debating team have actually conducted their own survey within the school, and we thought that was fabulous. That was a great idea for the students to take.
Yeah, again,
really
couldn't agree with you more. I think, primary research like that, which for a lot of the motions, I must say, the debates is probably not possible, but it is something that I think as adjudicators, we all love to see happen, especially, when the motion is around young people. And in the past we've had about young people being apathetic to global affairs, or young people not being serious about fast fashion or being ethical consumers. So if a team decides to conduct a survey, around the school on the issue and present those findings in the debate, it just makes that research all the more vibrant and alive, as I say, especially for us as adjudicators. So if they can bring in the findings, as I say, into debate, saying that 71% of their fellow students were actually, informed, were reading papers, or were listening to the news on a daily basis, or that X% do support a political party, or are involved, or have spoken to their TD, or have joined an NGO campaign, or buy fair trade, all of that. So that's really powerful stuff to see. And I suppose now on social media as well, with the primary research, is being able to talk to a TD on Twitter about their stance on a particular issue, or a business leader. And of course, back in the days when I started again in 1993, people actually used to phone people,
Back in the day.
Back in the day. So don't forget the humble phone call.
Yeah, so the ever evolving stages of the debates, Michael, since you started.
Exactly. Technology's brought us an awful long way. Yeah,
It has certainly. Also, Michael, people have really been bombarded by advocates of fake news and the spread of misinformation, especially in recent years. The need for reputable sources has never been more apparent. Really, could you share with us as to what constitutes a quality research source, and how can this be? How can this support an effective argument?
Yeah, again, the whole area of media literacy that is taught in schools is so vital today, and kind of understanding media bias on political leaning. And it's the whole, I suppose we're all aware, obviously, of the US and Fox News and CNN and how divided they are on both sides of the political spectrum. And today we have facts, and then we have alternative facts. And we have revisionism, and it's not revisionism of 20 years ago. It could be revisionist revising an event that took place just 6 months ago. So it's all very Orwellian, and can be rather scary. There's almost this sense that the truth could be anything you want it to be. In fact, I watched a documentary on Netflix. I think it was quite popular. I think we spoke about it before, about how Google will recommend different articles to people who ask the same question, but depending on your search history. So kind of enforcing the idea of people living in bubbles and echo chambers, where they never really engage with those of opposite views, that we hear what we are comfortable hearing, and our Google searches will serve up the things that we are comfortable reading. So again, I think, fortunately, there are a number of resources to help us recognize false news. I think the term fake news has become so politically partisan that we're trying to change that to call it false news. Once again, starting with questions. Who wrote this? Are they part of a reputable publication? Are they being serious? But I suppose for the issues that we deal with in the Concerned Debates, we like to recommend, reports, United Nations reports, like the Human Development Index or reports on the Sustainable Development Goals, or government reports that by and large we absolutely trust. Reports from Irish Aid, who have supported the debates from the very beginning, over 37 years ago, again, before you two were born. Or publications, like The Guardian, that have a global development section, or the New Internationalist paper, or websites like AlertNet or UN.org. And of course, books, particularly those written by authors from the Global South. And don't forget podcasts. Also, we must mention other reports too, like, from our fellow NGOs. Concern, obviously, we produce the Global Hunger Index each year. We do a lot of blogs and editorials, but our fellow NGOs as well produce very good reports, and we would definitely recommend students look at those and bring them into the debates. We also encourage students, in their research to find quotes from well-known, respected and admired people, who support your side of the argument. Again, the three of us will know, we get a lot of quotes from Nelson Mandela, from Gandhi, from Mary Robinson, along with quotes from, Beyonce and Lady Gaga, which is always interesting as well. And I suppose just the final point I'll make on this too is just to remind everyone that after all the research and hard work that goes into preparing the debates, to make sure you as a debater quote your sources. I know as an adjudicator myself, it can be really difficult sometimes when a string of websites is quoted as a source. There are obviously so many, and it can be hard to know, or how much credibility do we give to some of those. Some of them may as well be from www.ijustmadeitup.com. And then they fly on to the next part. As an adjudicator going, what? Where did they get that from? So it's difficult to keep research as broad as possible, but being able to find a quote, as I say, we want people to keep their research as broad as possible. But just, I think the icing on the cake is if you can find that zinger quote from a well-known, respected person who's in the public eye, that always really helps your side of the motion.
So I'm hearing, just to kind of weave it through as opposed to quote it verbatim, but just to seamlessly kind of
absolutely
weave it through their speech.
That's right. Yeah, and again, as an adjudicator, if we hear Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or any one of these hugely respected people, then it's going to go, oh.
It can be very powerful indeed.
Exactly. Okay.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for all the information. And I was just wondering, is there anything else that you might want to add to what you've said?
Well, just to say it's been an absolute pleasure for me as well. As I say, just to see the two of you in person again is just it's wonderful.
For those of you new to the podcast, we do have two other podcasts on concern.net. So this is our third podcast in a year and a half pandemic, and this is the first time that the three members of the team have met together, which has been really fortunate for us. So we know it's been a really tough year for teachers and students.
Well, actually, thanks, Jer, for that, because I wanted to make that point. We just want to wish all the teachers and students well in the upcoming year. It's been a really trying time, and I certainly don't need to tell you that, over the past 18 months. And I hope that you, teachers, students, can get back to what you're so good at, teaching, and not to be worrying about COVID. The Concerned Debates owe teachers a huge thanks for all the work they put into the debates. And we always love hearing about the experiences that students take from their involvement, from joining movements to choosing a career, to simple things like shopping differently or even becoming vegan after one of our debates motions, as one of our students did after one of our debates motions on the link between climate change and eating meat. And of course, I want to thank any of our adjudicators out there who are listening, and to give you a huge thanks for all the time and expertise you bring to the programme year after year after year. I want to thank Irish Aid for their ongoing support of the Concerned Debates over the years. As I said, they were there at the very beginning, over 37 years ago, and we really do appreciate their support and input into the debates. And finally, the last thing I want to say is Ger. This is your last Debating Development podcast and your last week in Concern after 9 years. So I just want to say how much I've appreciated you as a colleague over each of those years. Olga, if you start crying, I'm going to start crying. So let's try and hold it together.
This is impromptu, people.
Your commitment to what the debates are all about, and your incredible organising skills, and your respect for deadlines and just getting things done. But outside of that, we're both foodies. We both love to travel, and more than anything else, we love to have a laugh. And I know that certainly Olga, who is blubbering away on my right here, and I will really miss you, as will all of the Active Citizenship team and all your colleagues in Concern. We're going to miss you bigly. We want to wish you the very, very best in your next career.
Thank you so much, Michael. And it has been a pleasure recording with you guys today. And I'm delighted that I've had the opportunity to record with you on our third podcast, but not our final Debating Development podcast. There will be 2 more for everyone to enjoy. But thank you so much for those kind words. And I've really loved my time working with the Concern Debates team and the wider Active Citizenship team within Concern.
We are very grateful to have had you as a colleague, and I'm sure that your teachers that you have been liaising with, your debating schools, from your groupings and your volunteers will undoubtedly miss you, and the chats and the advice over the phone and all of the opportunities where we got to interact in a face-to-face environment, which I'm sure we will go back to in the near future.
Yes, thank you.
Olga and I are going to go off now and have a little cry.
That's allowed. That's allowed. I encourage. So thank you once again, Michael. Thank you, Olga. That's all from us today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. As I mentioned earlier, you can find more information about the Concerned Debates programme and the wider Active Citizenship programme on our website, www.concern.net. You can also follow us on our social media. On Twitter, we are at Concern Debates, and on Instagram, we are at Concern Active. We hope you enjoyed. Happy debating.
Bye.